Hello, YouTube. This is your boy, the Passport Bro Wingman, coming at you with another YouTube video. And today's video is called Uh-Oh, Passport Bros, Pookie and Ray Ray, Billy Bob, Chad and Tyrone, and the alpha men of the Western countries have found out about foreign women. Are we ruined? Or are we? And I kind of wanted to address this. Mainly because there's so much tension between the dating coaches and the passport bros. And this idea kind of came to mind, and I thought about the fact that, for example, there was a panel discussion in which one of my favorite dating coaches, even though I don't listen to a lot, but there's one in particular that I do like. His name is Alpha Male Strategies. So he came on a panel, and he came on a panel with a lot of the passport bros, and he was discussing his, like some of his rebuttals, I guess, to traveling for women and that kind of thing. And he did it in a very polite manner. And he kind of discussed it with the passport bros. And it kind of seemed like we kind of almost convinced him to kind of come over to our side. He saw that we had a lot of interesting points. And, we were able to find like a lot of middle ground with him. And I say that to say, it got me thinking, like, what if, because, the passport bros are going really hard. What if we were able to convince a lot of the dating coaches, a lot of the, within black community, there's a group of men we consider Pookie and Ray Rays. The white equivalent would be, like a Billy Bob or, that kind of thing. Within every society, we have some of the, and I really hate talking like this. I really hate ranking people, but you know how it is where they consider people more on the bottom of the community, that kind of thing. And then also, people talk about Chad and Tyrone, which are supposed to be like the alphas of the communities, like the Leonardo DiCaprios, the Denzel Washingtons, the guy that's was like the captain of the football team, like the celebrities and that kind of thing. So a lot of times people refer to them as, Chad and Tyrone, that kind of thing. But I'm sure some of you already kind of knew that. But I just wanted to address the title and kind of really get into this topic because, it's very interesting to kind of think about, because some people may think, because this is where a lot of the discussion comes from. People say there's a title they gave a lot of the, for now I'm going to say, I really hate using this. Just say like the men who they wouldn't necessarily consider alpha, or like the men who are not as popular with the women, including myself, like the men that are not as popular with maybe some of the women in the country. Sometimes they try to refer to us as, educated lames, or, maybe men who are less popular. I really hate using that term, mostly because they really only give you two categories: educated lame and then select men. As we got millions of men in the country, and you try to put men into two little boxes. To some degree, I kind of feel, even with the Pookie and Ray Rays and Chad and Tyrones, men kind of most men fall into both these categories. No man is just completely, like a nerd, and no man is completely like a social elite. Every man, I think, at some point likes to have intelligent conversation, and every man at some point likes to go out and hang with their friends and kind of talk about, fix the problems of the world with their friends, talk about things at Buffalo Wild Wings and that kind of thing. So we all do a little bit of both. But I just bring that up to say that sometimes when they're referring to men who are not dating coaches, or, not, I guess, not the elitists as far as, dealing with women, they always assume that because we were not that popular in our countries, when we go to these other countries, we're not going to be as popular. And in this case, if the elite men, the alphas, were to come to those countries, it would kind of put us back in our supposed place and that kind of thing, which could be nothing further than the truth. And I'm going to give you some reasons for that. Consider this. Let's consider where is the root of the Billy Bobs and the Pookies and Ray Rays, where do they come from? If you think about it in general, most of these men who are on the lower bottom, generally a lot of them are coming from single parent homes. They're coming from areas of severe poverty. And a lot of times they're compensating for, a lot of traumas they had to deal with, that kind of thing. And a lot of women, I feel, kind of like these men because they kind of feel like they can fix them. It makes things interesting. And because the U.S. has devalued anything a man can kind of do for a woman, from providing finances, support and that kind of thing. The only thing men can kind of really provide is, sexual reasons and comedy and some type of internal reward. And in this case, Pookie and Ray Ray, Billy Bob, and some of the men who are like ex-cons and that kind of stuff, kind of gives women some internal reward. They feel like they're helping the world by showing them how to create a resume, looking after them, trying to be a mom to them. So they kind of get, that's one thing I feel they kind of get from those kind of men, which is why they kind of like them, versus they feel like with the other men, including myself, they kind of feel like they can't really control us. We kind of doing our own thing. They will have to come under our leadership. And sometimes because of control issues, and they have, all these just silly reasons why they don't want to, submit to like, other types of men. But either way, you got to consider that the environment that these men grew up in, and also like the Western countries, kind of created these men in a sense. They kind of incentivize men to be like this. There is a theory about the idiocracy where like they're trying to dumb down the men in the population. And if you notice, a lot of times in Western countries, they tend to treat the entertainers a lot better than like the men who are like nuclear physicists, men who are like, I would even say some of the politicians. I tend to think that they treat some of the celebrities a little better than them. And for example, there's probably more women in the U.S. that would rather meet Cardi B than they would rather meet, like Michelle Obama. They probably find that more exciting, even though Michelle Obama does more for the country than Cardi B. But either way, the cultures there kind of create the Pookie and Ray Rays, the Billy Bob, the convicts, like the men on the lower ranks that kind of engage in a lot of degenerate behavior, and are kind of like, some of them sometimes are simpish, willing to kill men over their female, a lot of that type of behavior. Those men of those ranks. So so you got to consider that. But consider that in other countries like South America, specifically, it has a higher single mother rate than a lot of Western countries, which means there are plenty of Pookie and Ray Rays, Billy Bobs, Dustitos, Dusty Lees in these other countries. The women there have their fill of those men there. And I'm sure there probably are some women there that maybe they get a little job there or something like that, and then they want to support the man. But the problem is, which is different than the U.S., is they don't have the social programs that the U.S. has. For example, the social programs that the U.S. has. For example, in the U.S., you have, public housing, you have food stamps. So, of course, when a woman gets that, she feels like she doesn't need a man. And here comes this man who's like maybe hoboish, and she might feel like, well, I can kind of take care of him, and I can have control in a relationship. So she has plenty of money and food, and she's stable, so she has all the stability she needs to kind of take care of a Pookie and Ray Ray or Billy Bob. In other countries, there's high unemployment, there's no public housing. You will see shelters packed with people, and I think they even have a time limit that they can stay there. Even in some of these countries, you'll look out on the street, you even see women living out on the street, and some of these women are somewhat attractive. Maybe not very attractive, but you will be surprised. So there's a high, lots of homelessness. Consider the fact you got people from other countries such as Venezuela coming into their countries because Venezuela has been stabilized. So there's lots of competition among the men. And as I said before, there's no food. In many places, there's no food stamps. There's no food kitchens. The government pretty much make people fend for themselves. So in many cases, if the woman cannot even provide for herself, imagine her now trying to provide for another male who's not working. Imagine her trying to do that. And imagine, especially if she has a kid, imagine having to take care of her kid and also take care of her man. And in many cases, the woman might have to, because things are so bad and there's not that many jobs, she might have to even kind of sell herself out on the street or the red light district. So if she's doing that, which in many cases some of the women do not want to engage with it, but they have no choice. Do you think she's doing that for herself, and maybe even for the ones that have children, they're doing that for their children? So would they really want to do that and degrade themselves to take care of this random man who's in many cases his own family can't even really take care of him, and they're probably disappointed that he's not going to get out there and work and that kind of thing? those environments are not very supportive of a Pookie and Ray Ray or Billy Bob. So that concept doesn't really work as well in those countries. Not that it's not there, because I'm sure somewhere in these other countries there's a woman that's maybe a dentist there or something like that. She makes a little more than others. So maybe there's this guy there that just got out of jail and she wants a bad boy or something. She's probably traveled to Western countries as well. So she might feel like tourists, foreign men don't really impress her. So maybe in that case, you might find a woman like that you might find her taking care of, like a lower, I hate to put it this way, a lower ranking male, a more unproductive male, something like that. But it's not nowhere on the extreme as it is in the U.S. You literally got women who are millionaires dealing with men who probably make less than $20,000 a year. Probably, there's a term called the Madden King. All they do is play John Madden games all day. You'll see women with plenty of money dating some of these type of men, which really doesn't happen in a lot of these other countries. So you have that. So also, in regards to a lot of the alphas there, keep in mind that although a lot of the countries are poor, you do understand that they still have alphas there. They have some of their music stars that are there. For example, in Thailand, there's actually a section that actually caters to, I believe, the Japanese and the Chinese that come there. So although China might not have, as much money as the U.S., but in comparison to some of the local men in Thailand, they have more money there. So some of those men are already there. And keep in mind that even in poor countries such as the Ukraine, Thailand, Colombia, you will see Mercedes-Benz there. So everyone there, even though, like I said, everyone there is not necessarily struggling, there's a smaller pool of people that actually are well off, but it's a very small percentage in comparison to the United States. There is a huge gap between the haves and have-nots in these countries. But again, I wanted to at least let you know that they are there. So it's not like the women have not been exposed to alphas or celebrity type men or rich men there. There is a small pool of men there. So it kind of makes sense, because if you think about it, sometimes if you would go to areas, sometimes when you're passing through Colombia, you might go through like a red light district and you would see some of the women there and they have, breast implants, butt implants. And you would think if the woman they don't have this much money, how are they able to afford these surgeries? And you think about it, they have sponsors. They're dating some of the richer men there. Some of these men are sponsoring them. They're paying for these surgeries, and they're dating some of these women. On occasion, you might even have like a drug dealer there unfortunately, which we don't, I don't promote or, I don't encourage men to do, might be pimping out some of the women. So with his drug money, he's actually paying for some of her surgeries. And so, of course, some of the drug dealers there and some of the celebrity men, they're going through some of the women as well, not just the foreign men. It's also some of the men there as well. So what I'm saying is, a lot of women there are exposed to, rich men and alphas there. So it's not, so you have that going on. And keep in mind, well, then people will say, but if more alphas come into the country, wouldn't it make it worse? And the answer to that is really no. You got to also consider, what is the root of the reason why people are traveling to these countries? For example, here's one thing to know. In Western countries, all men are not unhappy with the situation there. Keep that in mind. There actually are some men and some women who are happy the way that the situation is. For example, think about the dating coaches. Some of these men, some of them might be very, very attractive. They might be like a Leonardo DiCaprio. Leonardo DiCaprio has this pick of the litter there. As some people have stated, it's almost like 80% of the women are only dating 20% of the men. Those 20% of the men, they're not necessarily unhappy. So in many cases, they don't really have any reason to travel to go to these other countries. And in fact, they actually want to keep it that way, because they can charge services to men like me and you, and they will say like, hey, I'll teach you how to get women like me. Just buy my $4,000 course. So they're making money off of us. And a lot of times, them being like the alphas. So not only do they get the women, but they get the respect of other men who maybe not fall into that 20%. So they're actually enjoying life. So their reason for going to these other countries mostly might just be for vacation. like a little wedding, a party with the boys, a time to like just go out. So that's their route. So when they get to these countries, keep in mind they've already had their share of women, especially beautiful women. As I would say, I would never say that all Western women are unattractive. There are some that are. So in many cases, they've already had their taste of these women. So when they go to these other countries, they might not necessarily be that impressed. So you gotta keep that in mind. So when they go to these countries, think about it from a economical standpoint. Does it make more sense for them to go to another country, pay for the trips, and date a woman maybe on a long distance, standpoint, or just deal with the women in their own countries where they're being treated as the 20% top of the line alpha male, and they have their pick of the litter there where they don't have to pay anything. And in fact, some of the women might actually pay for these men. For example, there was a football player that was dating. This is recent. I can't remember the woman's name, but anyway, it was a black woman. She dated this football player recently. She was dating him for 5 years, and he was an NFL player, and she said he really didn't pay for anything. She mostly was paying for a lot of his stuff. So in some cases, women in the States or in Western countries, they're actually footing the bill for some of these, they call them F-boys. For these F-boys, they're paying a lot of their expenses and sometimes tricking off on the men. So the men there, they really have no incentive to kind of look anywhere else. So again, and you got to consider our roots. Our roots are, for example, my roots in particular is, although I did okay with the women in the States, just my interaction with some of the foreign women in Florida, it really just piqued my interest. When I saw the difference in how they treated me versus some of the other women, it kind of grew a root in me to kind of have a thirst and a desire to travel and see if these are how some of the foreign women in the first world country would treat me. Just imagine how the women in these third world countries would kind of treat me if I was there. And it just really got me thinking. And once I got traveled, I was completely hooked. Once I got hooked, that root in me grew even more, and it just gave me more of a desire to kind of build and try to find a way where I could kind of stay there as much as I want, which is why I now have a remote job, which has allowed me to travel to multiple countries. I'm really, really working now to make myself financially independent so that if I want to, on my own behalf, I can just stay in one of these other countries and, go fly back and forth as much as I want. I currently now am dating a Venezuelan woman that I met in Colombia, and borderline, I'm considering maybe settling down with her. So in that sense, potentially I might bring her back to the States, but I've also considered just living with her in Colombia. But yeah, but that's my take on this whole situation. In my opinion, it's nothing to really worry about. We are not ruined at all. Business as usual for those reasons I stated. I don't want to keep this video too long, but if you're new to my channel, please subscribe to the channel. Hit the thumbs up button, please, 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 and hit the notification bell. And leave comments. I want to hear your whole take on this whole situation. And until next time, this is the Passport Bro Wingman signing off. Thank you.